The myth of getting rid of trauma. Hello, and welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Jameelah, and I am a master manifester. And I'm sure you are too, because you are consuming content like this. The name of this channel is Holistic Manifesting, because I believe in a whole body, whole mind, and whole being experience when it comes to manifesting these amazing lives that we're choosing. What I'm discussing in this video is the myth of getting rid of trauma. Now, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I believe that people need to be stuck in whatever traumatic experiences that they had all throughout their lives. That's not the case. As a sociologist, I've studied on many levels the different versions of trauma that happens, especially as we're socialized, because trauma doesn't really happen in a vacuum with yourself. Trauma happens through being socialized with other people. So when people talk about trauma responses and trauma bonds, they are uniquely a sociological outcome in society. But then when you start to work on it as an individual, then that's when you get to the psychological aspect of it. So when you talk about trauma, you talk about things you've experienced at any given time. So this is a really good example that I have of this particular thing. When I was younger, I had the mom that was like, water, pools kill. Don't go in the water, you're going to die, right? I mean, turns out if you know how to swim, you got better chances. But I mean, that's just what we came from. And so nobody, we didn't learn how to swim. I didn't learn how to swim when I was a kid or anything. It was just stay out of the water. And she used to always say we can go soak our feet in the water. She used to say that every time we went to somebody's house with a pool. And she meant like, just putting your feet in the edge of the pool only. You little kids want to get in, right? So first experience when I was about 5 or 6 years old, being in the pool, probably about 3 feet high, 3 feet deep. I got in, and of course I couldn't swim because little kids do that. And I remember being with my siblings and like nobody was paying attention. And I remember fighting to get out of the water or whatever. And I think my brother grabbed me, my oldest brother. And he was just like, you almost drowned or whatever. I remember that real clearly, but I could be having that memory wrong because, memories are or whatever. And I just remember, like coughing and choking and then like getting out of the water. And then like, ever since that moment, anytime I got in or near water, if I heard it near my ears, I panicked. Like I got, heavy breathing, I got anxiety and all that kind of stuff. So like I couldn't hear water near my ears. And for that matter, we didn't have a shower in our house growing up. We had a tub. And I never took showers until I had my own apartment or until I went to college. That's when I took showers when I finally went to college. And I was in a dorm. And then I got apartments after that where there were showers, but I took baths like all of my childhood and everything. So I never had the instance of that. When I got in showers, I found myself being afraid of letting the water pour over my head, even with a shower cap on. So like that water trauma was real deep in me. And so all throughout the years, I just always told people, I can't swim, don't put me in water, whatever. Well, we had these family friends and like all of them could swim. They could all swim really, really good. They were like a whole swimming family, right? And I remember going to a pool with them one day when I was about 15, 16 years old. And this boy was over there throwing everybody in the pool. And then he came up and he was like, her too. And the girls who I was with, they was like, she can't swim. He was like, y'all lying. And I was like, they are not lying. So he threw me in. This was about 6 feet deep. Like, it was one of those pools that was round and then the middle got deep. And then as it went to the edge, it got, more shallow. And I remember that pool probably so little, but in my mind, it was like a humongous body of water. But I know if I went back to it today, I'd be like, that pool was so small. But I remember getting thrown in there and just like taking in a whole bunch of water for whatever reason. And the lifeguard, the person that attended the pool had to come and he pounded me on the back and all the water came out of me. They dragged me up off the edge and I was like vomiting up water on the edge and it was just a whole dramatic scene, right? Now, you talking about putting me off on being in water. 2 traumatic incidents related to that. So then later on in life, I was like, I want to learn how to swim. I tried in my early 20s. I tried in my mid 20s. And then I tried again when my daughters were little. Come to find out, children are excellent motivation to learn how to do things, right? Especially when they're so good at it. And because who I was married to and their family had a pool and everybody could swim over there, they learned how to swim at like when they were 2 years old. I used to take them to the pool, but I felt uncomfortable with anything over 5 feet because I'm like 5'7.5". And I was like, okay, I can keep my head up over that. I can get them. But anything more than that, blah, blah, blah. So when I went to those classes first, none of those people were considering the trauma that I had experienced in those areas. And when I tell you, every time one lady I was in class with, she was from another country. I don't know what it was. Maybe it was Russia or something, but she was just rough. And she was like, dip head. And I was like, no, I'm not putting my head in the water. And she was like, blow bubbles, dip head. And she didn't have no nurturing anything with her. And I just felt like a failure when I left her classes. And I might have went like 3 times and then I never went back. And then I went again to another class with this guy. He was teaching so many people at one time. And I was able to just kind of cop out and slip out, out of the class and like not come back. And then when I went to this class, finally, when my daughters were about 4 and like 6 years old or something, they used to always say, Mommy, you're getting in the pool. You want to come swim? And I hated telling them I couldn't swim with them. And so I was like, okay, I got it. And then I had this friend who couldn't swim, and everywhere we went, she would go to the lifeguards. Can you watch my babies? Because I can't swim. And I was like, stop telling people that. Like, just stop. It was just such a thing. So I was like, I got to be better. I got to do better. So I went to this one class, and this guy, he was amazing. And the biggest thing that he made me understand, because I say all that story to tell you this, the biggest thing that he made me understand was that he said, you can't get rid of childhood trauma when it comes to, water and drowning. He said, you can't get rid of it. And he was like, I don't have it, but I can't. He was from South Africa. And he was like, I don't have that trauma, but he was like, I know you can't get rid of it. I've been teaching adults long enough. He says, but what you can do is manage it. What you can do is learn how to work around it. He was like, because your body is always going to have this reaction because it's set up to protect you. It's set up to survive. And so that instinct, that automatic reaction is always going to be implanted in you to some degree. And so while you can hush it a lot of times, it's easy for it to creep back in and still be a large part of you. That's why so many people deal with awful or traumatic things in life, and they'll do good for a very long time. And then they'll have this triggering, because that's what the word trigger is really for. It's not because somebody's not using a paper straw. It's like they'll have this triggering moment to where something that reminds them of that moment of childhood in a way that they haven't experienced it before shows up. And it's like they turn into that little child again. They turn into that version of themselves for a second. They have the panic attack. They have the anxiety attack, And so when he told me that in that class, it's like it unleashed something inside of me that wasn't there before. I was always so hopped up on being brave and trying to outdo the trauma that was in me. And I couldn't get my mind to get past it. I couldn't get my mind to outgrow it because I was trying to like get rid of it and push it to the side. But when he told me and gave me the permission to say, you're going to feel traumatic, you're going to get under that water and you're going to be like, oh my God, I'm going to drown. I'm going to feel like this. He was just like, but if you can come back to yourself each time, then you'll be better. He said, in matter of fact, you might not be able to come back to yourself. So I'm going to show you how to get up, how to stand up straight in any body of water, no matter what you do with your arms. I still do that little process to this day, balling my legs to my chest and putting my arms straight down. You automatically come up like this. Never knew that. I've always tried to control the water, like grip it, like you can control water, and like, trying to hold on to for dear life. And water will teach you every single time you do not have the power. And when he said that, it's just like, it gave me permission to be okay with the trauma that I've experienced in that area. He didn't talk down on me like so many people had done. He didn't act like you can't swim, blah, 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 and all this kind of stuff. He didn't treat me in that way because he was like, that's going to be a part of, you're going to hyperventilate like when you're like 60 years old, and you're going to be like, how did that happen? Because it's in you. It happened so young to you too. And then again, he was like, it's a part of who you are, and that's okay. It's kind of like when we get a scar on our body, the scar can heal over the years or whatever, but you look down, you might even forget it's there most days. And then like 10 years later, you look and be like, what is that scar? I have one on my forehead right here. It's a long one too. I remember always thinking Queen Latifah had one similar. I don't know why I always paid attention to that, but it was like I bust my head open on a countertop, and I remember somebody giving me peppermints to soothe me at the moment. And I remember the blood dripping on my face, and I just thought I was going to die. But it was like a skin break. It probably should have got stitches, but it's back in the day, whatever. And I don't think about that scar. My daughter asked me about it like a couple of years ago. She's like, what's that scar? And I was like, oh, that was from when or whatever, like that. And it's still there. It's just that I don't pay attention to it anymore. It's just not, but it's still a part of me. So I think sometimes we get caught up in this myth of getting rid of trauma, and it holds us up because we get mad at ourselves and we're just like, I'm still thinking about this thing. I'm still bothered by this. I still feel the anxiety. I remember I used to get mad because I had anxiety. I know how to not trigger anxiety in me and not go to certain places, not be around certain people, not drink certain substances, not do certain things, not sit in environments that's not healthy. Like there's certain things that I know will trigger, and that little anxiety will start peaking up, and I'm just like, what's that? Caffeine is a real bad trigger, right? And then it starts to a domino effect, and it's just like, okay, now I feel nausea. Okay, now I feel like I'm, and the things start playing out that I've experienced so much in my life. And for a while, it was always get rid of the anxiety, get rid of. But I realized that that's just a natural reaction to my body. My body's always going to, when it gets to a point where all those buttons are pressed, that is the number one way it's going to run. Now, when those things happen, I can learn how to manage it. And for me, prevention is the best management, that there is. It's like, there's one thing about, prevention of, what do they say, preventative care with medicine. And then there's this like cancer care. So it's just like the preventative measures would have been eating right, going to the park, taking the walks, drinking the water, not eating the blah, 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 and all these sort of things. That's the preventative. So that's what I do. I make sure I'm putting the right things in my body, going to the right places, being around the right people, having the right conversations, not bombarding myself with conversations that are like unhealthy for my mindset, because it's a downhill thing we don't see happening all the time. So then on the other end, if some anxiety happens to creep in, I'm very equipped. That muscle has been worked out. I'm very equipped to handle it so that it doesn't get to a full-fledged panic attack, right? And I can honestly say it's been about 2 years since I've had a panic attack. And that's huge for me because I used to have them about 3 to 4 times a year. And they would come out of nowhere. Like I would think, but my mom always said that it was when I had to make a big decision and I was avoiding it. And that was very, very true. Very true. And so, yeah, because sometimes you just don't want to make the decision. And so when we look at ourselves as like this person that is, it's okay to have this trauma inside of us. It's okay to have had these experiences. Then we're not always trying to get rid of it and then falling short and then feeling like we're failing to some degree, right? Like we can get around. I can honestly say this. There's certain people I used to be around a lot, and they would have like certain conversations where they were always down on themselves and pulling themselves down and talking negative and gossiping about other people. And for a while I had to separate myself from them, but I realized they were family. I wanted this person in my life. So I was able to learn how to visit without letting this stuff get on the inside of me. And that's pretty much what you learn how to do. It's not that the stuff that they saying were not triggering and wasn't traumatic and it didn't make me feel a certain way if I let it. I learned to manage my expectations around what was going to happen in those interactions, what was going to take place when I connected with those people. I learned to manage that expectation as opposed to trying to make myself go, relax, release, relax, release. Going through all that kind of stuff, trying to get to this place of deep breaths in, deep breaths out. Listen to your affirmations. All those things are wonderful, but there are certain things that you can't use that for, that it's not going to work in. You have to find a way to prevent it ahead of time. So I would go into this environment and I would have no expectation of this person being any better than what they were the last time I saw them. I would have no expectation that they wouldn't gossip. I knew exactly what they were going to do. And in my mind, I was perfectly okay with it. It no longer made me anxious. I wasn't trying to control the environment. I wasn't trying to make them better or teach them anything or try to be something else. I wasn't trying to do any of those things. And that's what we have to do when it comes to certain traumatic experiences. When we try to control it and like take it in like with a firm grip and go and get that trauma out of our lives, that's when we're going to find ourselves falling short. So it's not that I'm saying people can't grow. Believe me, I'm a growth queen. We can all grow, right? We can all grow. But what I do know is that certain traumatic experiences that happen in our lives, they're never not going to be a part of who we are. They even explain the way we move throughout the world, the way we interact with other people. So they're not going to just be something that just falls by the wayside. And at some point it's like, oh, when I get in water, I don't even think about that anymore. Yes, I do. I was doing cannonballs with my daughters, when they used to like to do that. Now it's like, get in the pool, then I got to wash my hair. Then I got to, my cycle's down, when it's really not. Sometimes they don't. I think the last time my girls wanted to get in pools, they were like 12 and 10 all the time. And then I I tricked them into it when they was around 14 and 12. And like now it's like, they're going to go visit their people's house. And I'm like, y'all can get in the pool. And they were like, the pool? And I'm like, that's what happens to pools at houses. That's why I never wanted one. Nobody wants to get in those pools after a while. And you got to maintain it no matter what. But when kids are young, it's amazing because they love to get in the water. But nonetheless, I get in there, I get the cannonballs. The first thing I'm thinking is, you're going to be okay. You're going to be okay. It's just water. Swim like you know how to swim. I'm talking to myself the whole time. I'm barely enjoying the fun because I'm talking to myself because I'm just like free diving into, 7-foot deep side of the pool, going in there and knowing that you got to keep your head right because you need to get to the shallow side. You need to get to the edge. You need to get somewhere, right? And so that's just what it is. That's what happens when you learn how to swim when you're 33 years old and you come from a traumatic experience when it comes to the water. And you have to be okay with that. You have to give yourself that grace. You're not supposed to completely rid yourself of that. You have to give yourself that grace and know that any given time, something can tap into it in a different kind of way. So even if I did get through many years and I was this excellent swimmer and I got up every morning and swam every afternoon, I was even swimming in the ocean, right? And all these sort of things. And I was able to be that person. What if I got in there one day and like something happened to where something got latched onto my foot while I'm under the water and I can't get my foot up? You think that trauma is not going to hit me like a ton of bricks, like in that moment, because I don't have control and I can't move? Like that panic is not going to hit. It's going to hit to some degree, and I'm going to have to learn how to manage it as opposed to being bothered that it's still inside of me. I've watched people who've been swimming forever drown nearly in different environments. I watched this lady at the ocean one day and in the Coronado Beach in San Diego, and she was doing a good job, but those I forget what they call them, not whirlpools, turbulence, I guess. I feel like it's something else in the water, not turbulence. That's in the air, right? Whatever it is in the water, when currents. Those currents got the best of her and they started pulling her under. The rescue people even had to get to her. If she was a non-swimmer, she would have been gone. But because she was able to keep herself up. When they finally got her back to the beach, it was like the longest 2 minutes I've ever seen. She just fell out crying on her knees into the sand. And I was just like, damn, that's crazy. Now she got a new trauma. You know what I mean? Because that's, traumas happen as we get older too. So anyway, you're not supposed to get rid of trauma. It's a myth. You're supposed to learn how to manage yourself around the things that you've experienced. It's really hard for us to throw away the scars and the backgrounds and the things that we've come from. We have to learn how to work around them. Because sometimes they're just always going to be lingering, waiting to be summoned. Anyway, I hope you all have a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful day.